Lucia Verisi came home with rain in her hair, sugar on her sleeves, and a box of pastries still warm against her chest, only to hear her sister laughing in the bedroom with the man Lucia was supposed to marry. At first, she thought she had misunderstood the sound. The apartment was dim. The hallway light flickered softly above her. Her key was still hanging from the lock, and the little paper bag from the bakery was pressing heat into her palm. It should have been a normal evening. She had come home early because the rain had scared away the last customers, because the lemon cream had turned out perfect, because she wanted Enzo to taste the first batch before anyone else. She had imagined his smile. She had imagined him saying she worked too hard. She had imagined taking off her wet shoes, putting coffee on the stove, and sitting beside him at the kitchen table while Rome blurred gold and silver beyond the window. Instead, she stood in the hallway and listened to Valentina whisper his name like she had been practicing it in secret. Lucia did not scream. That was the first strange thing. Her whole life, people had told her she was emotional, too soft, too tender, too easy to wound. Valentina had said it with a laugh whenever Lucia cried during old movies. Enzo had said it gently whenever Lucia worried about money or family or the pastry shop. Even her mother said it when Lucia took things too personally. But standing there, with betrayal breathing behind the half-closed bedroom door, Lucia did not fall apart. She became very still, still enough to hear the rain clicking against the balcony glass, still enough to smell Enzo's cologne mixing with her sister's sweet jasmine perfume, still enough to notice Valentina's red scarf dropped across the chair Lucia had carried up 3 flights of stairs herself because Enzo had said delivery was too expensive. Still enough to look at the pale yellow wall she had painted last spring, back when she believed building a home meant choosing a color together. Her fingers tightened around the pastry box. One corner bent under her thumb, and a little puff of powdered sugar slipped through the seam and drifted onto the floor. That tiny white stain made something inside her wake up. Not grief, not yet. Grief would come later, maybe in the morning, maybe next week, maybe while washing a mixing bowl or tying an apron. This was cleaner than grief, sharper. Lucia looked down at the ring on her left hand. It flashed under the weak hallway light. Proud and useless, Enzo had proposed inside Dolce Stella, her little pastry shop, with customers clapping and her mother crying, and Valentina standing near the display case, with a smile that had seemed tight at the time. Lucia had thought her sister was jealous of the attention. Now she understood. Some people did not want what you had because it was good. They wanted it because it was yours. Enzo murmured something behind the door. Valentina laughed again, soft and low, the kind of laugh Lucia had never heard her use with family. Lucia stared at the door. It would have been easy to push it open, easy to throw the box, easy to demand explanations from 2 people who had already answered every important question with their bodies. But Lucia suddenly understood that some doors did not need to be opened. Some truths were complete, even when you only heard them from the hallway. She placed the pastries on the small table beside the entrance. Slowly, because her finger was swollen from kneading dough all day, she twisted the ring free. It resisted for one painful second, as if even the promise wanted to bruise her before leaving. Then it slid off, and her hand felt naked and strangely light. There was a notepad by the door, the one she used for flower orders and delivery reminders. Lucia tore off a square and picked up a pen. The first stroke shook. The second did not. She wrote 2 words. I saw. Nothing more. No speech. No question. No please explain. No how could you. She put the note beneath the ring and set both beside the pastry box. For one small, foolish second, she looked toward the bedroom again, almost hoping one of them would come out and see her before she left. Not because she wanted to stay, because some injured part of her wanted them to know the exact moment they lost her. But the door stayed half closed. Valentina sighed. Enzo whispered, Lucia turned and walked out before either of them realized she had become a stranger. The rain was heavier outside. Rome shone beneath it, all wet stone, passing headlights, and windows glowing like small private worlds. Lucia pulled her coat around her apron and walked without knowing where her feet were taking her. She passed the flower stall at the corner, closed. She passed the pharmacy, still bright. She passed the little church where old women lit candles for sons who never called. Her shoes slapped through puddles, and flour clung stubbornly to her sleeves. A woman with a silk umbrella glanced at Lucia's apron and wet curls, then looked away with polite discomfort. Lucia almost smiled. People always looked away when pain did not arrive in a pretty shape. Her phone began buzzing in her coat pocket before she reached the end of the street. She did not need to look. Enzo, then Valentina, then Enzo again, then probably her mother, because Valentina was the kind of woman who could stab you and then cry because the knife had hurt her hand. Lucia kept walking. Her thumb brushed the phone once through the fabric. A tired, weak part of her wanted to turn it on, wanted to hear Enzo say it was not what she thought. Men loved that sentence, as if women could not understand a room without instructions, as if betrayal needed subtitles. She left the phone unanswered and kept walking until the green sign of Dolce Stella appeared through the rain. Her pastry shop sat on the corner like a warm memory. Cream walls, pale green trim, copper lamps glowing softly inside, a blue wooden sign above the door, carved years ago by her father, before his hands started to shake. During the day, Dolce Stella smelled like espresso, orange zest, butter, almond paste, and sugar turning golden at the edges. Children pressed their noses to the glass. Old men argued about coffee. Tourists pointed badly at the menu and asked for whatever smelled best. Lucia had built that place with burned fingers, early mornings, rent worries, recipes written in her father's old notebook, and the kind of patience people mistook for weakness because it did not make noise. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The bell gave its bright little sound, cheerful enough to hurt. Lucia turned on only the kitchen lights. The display case was empty except for a tray of imperfect cannoli shells she had planned to fill in the morning. Silver counters gleamed. Mixing bowls sat upside down to dry. The ovens were cooling, still carrying the scent of heat and work. Lucia went straight to the sink and washed her hands. The water turned cloudy with flour. For the first time since leaving the apartment, tears pressed hot behind her eyes. She held them there. She did not mind crying. She minded crying for Enzo. The office behind the kitchen was barely a room. A desk, a filing cabinet, 2 shelves full of receipt boxes, a framed photograph of Lucia standing beside her father during opening week, both of them exhausted, proud, and too stubborn to admit they were afraid. She sat in the chair, took out her phone, and saw missed calls piling across the screen. Enzo had written first. "Where are you? Then please answer. Then this is not what you think." Lucia stared at that one for a long moment. A laugh came out of her before she could stop it. It sounded wrong in the little office. Too sharp, too alive. Valentina's messages were worse. "Lou, please. You don't understand. Don't do something dramatic." Lucia placed the phone face down on the desk. Dramatic. She had left a ring and a note. Valentina had taken her sister's future into a bedroom and still somehow expected Lucia to behave politely around the wreckage. That was when Lucia noticed the filing cabinet drawer sitting slightly open. She frowned. She always closed it. Always. The cabinet was old and mean, and if left open, the metal corner caught her hip when she squeezed between it and the desk. Lucia stood slowly and pulled the drawer wider. The folders inside looked normal at first. Tax documents, vendor contracts, payroll forms, wedding invoices. Her hand paused over that folder because anger sometimes needed something practical to hold. She pulled it free. It was too heavy, much too heavy. Lucia opened it and found 3 cream-colored envelopes tucked between catering receipts. Expensive paper. No names. No stamps. One already torn open. Inside were folded pages covered in numbers, initials, company names, payment routes, dates, and strange little codes written in careful black ink. Lucia was not a banker, but she knew accounts. She had to. Butter prices changed. Rent changed. Suppliers lied with soft voices. Brides added guests and pretended they had not. Real money had rhythm. These pages had none. Too many transfers. Too many names that sounded like companies, but felt like masks. Too many payments listed under events that had never happened. Then she saw the name of her shop, Dolce Stella. Beside it was an amount so large her mind rejected it the first time. Then again, then her stomach turned cold. She pulled another page, then another. Enzo's family name appeared twice. Valentina's initials appeared beside a date from 2 weeks ago. The same afternoon she had come to the shop, pretending she wanted to help Lucia choose ribbons for the wedding favors. Lucia remembered her sister standing in this very office, touching the shelves with glossy nails, asking where old invoices were kept, smiling when Lucia teased her for becoming boring. Now that smile changed shape in memory. It became something thinner, sharper. Betrayal widened in the room. This was not only Enzo and Valentina in her apartment. This was her shop, her father's shop, her name, her safe place. They had used the one thing Lucia had built with clean hands to hide something dirty. A sound came from the alley behind the bakery. Lucia froze. It was not loud, just a scrape, metal against metal, then a low male voice outside the back door. Her first thought was Enzo, but the thought died quickly. Enzo would call. Enzo would knock. Enzo would arrive with wet hair and wounded eyes, trying to dress his lies as confusion. Whoever stood behind the back entrance was not coming to explain. Another scrape followed. The lock trembled. Lucia moved before panic could catch her. She gathered the papers and shoved them into an empty pastry box. Then she stopped, grabbed a stack of cannoli shells, wrapped them quickly in paper, and placed them on top. Papers looked like guilt. Pastries looked like Lucia being Lucia. Her mind had gone strangely bright, as if fear had cleaned the windows inside her head. She took emergency cash from the coffee tin, grabbed the small suitcase she kept in the storage closet for supplier trips, and moved toward the front door. The back lock clicked. Lucia did not look over her shoulder. She slipped through the front entrance, locked it with fingers that nearly failed her, and stepped back into the rain. She walked first. Running made people look. Running made people ask questions. She walked past the flower stall, past the pharmacy, past the church, and only when she turned onto a larger street did she let herself move faster. Her apartment was gone. Her shop was no longer safe. Her sister had betrayed her. Her fiancé had used her. Someone had come looking for the records beneath the cannoli in the box pressed to her ribs. Lucia Verisi had started the evening thinking she might share warm pastries with the man she loved. Now she was heading toward Termini Station with wet shoes, a suitcase, a pastry box full of criminal accounts, and no idea who in Rome was still allowed to be trusted. By the time she reached the station, rain had made a disaster of her hair. Dark curls stuck to her cheeks and collar. Her coat clung to her arms. The pastry box had softened at the corners. Termini roared around her with late trains, rolling suitcases, tired families, students, soldiers, vendors, and announcements echoing overhead. The smell of coffee fought bravely against diesel and wet wool. Lucia stood beneath the departure board and realized she had nowhere to go. Naples was too close to family, Florence too obvious, Milan too expensive. Somewhere small, maybe. Somewhere with quiet streets and no one who knew Valentina's smile. Somewhere she could think before everyone else decided what story to tell about her. She moved toward a ticket machine, then stopped. 2 men stood near the entrance. Dark jackets. No luggage. No hurry. One held a phone near his chest. The others scanned faces instead of platforms. Lucia lowered her head. Her heart began beating so hard she felt it in her throat. She turned too quickly, her suitcase catching behind her, and crashed straight into a wall that smelled like cedar, expensive wool, and danger. The pastry box flew from her arms. Cannoli shells burst across the floor, scattering in broken golden pieces over polished stone, and black leather shoes that probably cost more than her oven. Lucia stumbled back, ready to apologize because manners were buried deep in her bones, even while terror chewed at them. Then she looked up. The man in front of her was tall in a way that felt almost inconvenient, broad shoulders, dark hair brushed away from a face too controlled to be kind. His suit was black, flawless, and dry despite the storm outside. Two men stood several steps behind him, watching the station with quiet alertness. People moved around him without touching him, the way water moved around stone. He looked down at the ruined pastries, then at Lucia, with the calm patience of a man who had never once been afraid of being in someone's way. Something inside Lucia, already bruised by the night, caught fire. "Are you serious?" she said. The man blinked once. Lucia pointed at the broken shells near his shoes. "Do you have any idea how long those take to make?" His gaze moved from her face to the floor. "You walked into me. I was walking in a public train station. You were standing there like a funeral statue with cheekbones." One of the men behind him made a sound that might have been a cough. The tall man did not turn. His eyes stayed on Lucia, and for the first time, something changed in them. Not anger, interest. "A funeral statue," he repeated. "Yes, expensive, unhelpful, in the way." His mouth moved slightly, not quite a smile. "Most people step around me. Most people probably see the warning signs before they hit the statue." His gaze dropped to the pastry box, bent open on the floor. A few wrapped shells remained inside. Beneath them, Lucia saw the corner of one cream envelope. Her anger vanished so fast, she almost swayed. She crouched and began gathering the broken pastries with more speed than dignity. "Never mind, it is fine." The cannoli died bravely. He crouched too. That startled her more than anything else. Men in suits like his did not crouch on station floors. Men with guards behind them did not pick up pastry fragments. But he reached for one broken shell, studied it briefly, as if it mattered, and placed it into the box with surprising care. "How much were they worth?" he asked. Lucia pulled the box closer. "Emotionally or financially?" "Both. Financially, 18 euros. Emotionally, after the night I have had, close to priceless. Then I owe you priceless." She looked at him. It was the wrong moment to notice his voice. Low, smooth, controlled, with something dark beneath it, like a door opening into a room where the lights had not been turned on. He did not sound like a man flirting. He sounded like a man who could make a promise and have the city rearrange itself to keep it. "You can owe me 18 euros and an apology," she said. This time his mouth did curve, barely. "I am sorry for the cannoli." It was absurd. It was also the first honest sentence anyone had given her all night. Lucia almost laughed. The sound rose in her throat, tired and wild, but before it escaped, she saw the two men from the entrance moving toward them. One had his hand inside his jacket. The tall man saw her face change. Every trace of amusement left him. "Are they with you?" he asked. "No," Lucia whispered. The station announcement cracked overhead, swallowing a few seconds in static and city names. People rushed between platforms. A child cried. A suitcase wheel squealed. The world kept moving, but the space around Lucia became very quiet. The tall man shifted, just slightly, placing his body between her and the men approaching. It was not dramatic. It was not a performance. It was the natural movement of someone used to danger, deciding where danger would have to pass. Lucia looked up at him. Who are you?" His eyes did not leave the men. "Tommaso Silvestri." The name moved through the air like a match struck in a dark room. Lucia did not know much about Rome's criminal families. She knew enough. Everyone did. Tommaso Silvestri was not a man women scolded over ruined pastries. He was not a man people bumped into and survived by being rude. He was the kind of name spoken more softly after midnight, the kind of man shopkeepers pretended not to see when his cars passed, the kind of danger that wore expensive wool and waited without blinking. Lucia's fingers tightened around the pastry box. Tommaso glanced down at her then, and somehow, even with danger walking closer, he almost looked amused again. "You should have cared a little," he said. "About what?" "When I asked if you knew who I was." One of the approaching men stepped faster. Tommaso's guards moved at once. Lucia's breath caught. Tommaso did not grab her. He did not shove her behind him. He did not close his hand around her wrist, as if fear gave him permission. He simply opened his palm beside her, offering it without forcing. "Lucia," he said, though she had not told him her name, and that sent a soft chill through her. Maybe he had seen it on the pastry box. Maybe men like him read the world faster than ordinary people. "You can stay here if you want. But if you are carrying what I think you are carrying, those men are not here to ask politely." Lucia looked at his hand, then at the men, then at the box pressed against her chest, hiding the papers that had turned her life into something sharp and moving. She placed her hand in his. "Fine," she said, her voice shaking only a little, "but you still owe me 18 euros. Tommaso's fingers closed gently around hers, and for the first time that night, Lucia ran toward danger, because it was the only thing standing between her and something worse. Tommaso's hand was warm around hers, not tight, not cruel, not the way Enzo used to hold her wrist when he wanted to guide her away from a conversation he did not like. This was different. This was an offer that had already been accepted, a promise made through motion instead of words. Lucia ran beside him through the bright, roaring station, with the pastry box crushed against her ribs and her suitcase bumping behind her, and for a wild second she thought of how ridiculous she must look. Flour on her sleeves, rain in her curls, powdered sugar on her coat. A woman who had left a broken engagement ring on a hallway table and was now fleeing through Termini with Rome's most dangerous man because two strangers wanted the papers hidden under cannoli shells. If someone had told her that morning this would be her life by midnight, she would have laughed, checked the oven timer, and told them to drink less espresso. Behind them, the men shouted something. Tommaso did not turn. His two guards moved like shadows at the edge of her vision, one falling behind them, the other cutting across the flow of travelers to block pursuit. People cursed as they were pushed aside. A businessman dropped his phone. A girl in a red coat grabbed her mother's sleeve and stared with wide eyes. Lucia wanted to apologize to all of them, which was insane, but manners were stubborn things. Tommaso led her down a side passage she would never have noticed on her own. No signs, no shops, just a narrow corridor beside a service elevator, smelling faintly of bleach and old coffee. He pressed a code into a panel. The door opened. Lucia stumbled inside with him, breathing hard, and the elevator dropped before the shouting caught up. For 3 seconds, there was only the soft mechanical hum and the sound of her own breath. Then Lucia yanked her hand free. Tommaso looked at her. "You knew my name," she said. His expression stayed calm. It was printed on the pastry box. Lucia looked down. Dolce Stella, Lucia Verisi, pastry chef. Small gold letters on the side, now smeared by rain and panic. She hated that relief came so fast. She hated even more that she had needed relief from him. "Do not do that again," she said. "Read pastry boxes? Make me think you know things I did not give you." The elevator lights slid over his face. For the first time, the perfect stillness in him shifted. Not much, just enough for her to notice he had hurt her more deeply than she expected. "All right," he said. Lucia blinked. She had expected a cold smile, a warning, a reminder of who he was. Men with power usually disliked being corrected, especially by women who still had broken pastry in their hair. But Tommaso only stood there, hands at his sides, giving her the space she had demanded without making a show of it. The elevator stopped in an underground garage. The doors opened to black cars, concrete pillars, yellow lights, and the low echo of engines somewhere farther away. One of Tommaso's men was already there, holding open the rear door of a sleek car with dark windows. Lucia stopped at once. "No!" Tommaso turned. "No? I am not getting into a strange car with a man whose name makes people lower their voices. You were safer holding my hand upstairs than standing alone with those men. That does not make you safe. It only means they were worse." His mouth moved, almost a smile, but it did not reach his eyes. "That is fair. Fair." He said it as if fairness were a foreign language he understood, but rarely had reason to use. Lucia gripped the pastry box harder. The paper bent beneath her fingers. "Who were they?" she asked. "I was hoping you would tell me. I have no idea." His gaze dropped briefly to the box. "But you have something they want." Lucia did not answer. The guard by the car shifted his weight. Tommaso lifted one hand, and the man looked away, giving them the strange privacy of people who were not truly alone. "Lucia," Tommaso said, and this time her name sounded different, not stolen from a printed box, spoken carefully, as if he understood it belonged to her. "I will not force you into the car, but there are only 3 exits from this garage. If those men were sent by who I think sent them, all 3 will be watched within minutes. You can stand here and argue with me, and I will allow it, because apparently you enjoy arguing during emergencies. Or you can get in, keep your pastry box, keep your suitcase, sit by the door, and tell me where you want to be dropped." Lucia stared at him. Her pulse was still racing. Her feet were soaked. Her coat was heavy with rain. Upstairs, men were looking for her. Her phone was off, her home was poisoned, her shop was compromised, and the only person offering her a way out was the kind of man fathers warned daughters about, in voices too quiet for church. "Fine," she said, "but I sit by the door, of course." "And no one touches the box." Tommaso's eyes sharpened for half a second. "No one touches the box. And if I ask to leave, you stop the car. Yes. Do not say yes like that." "Like what?" "Like the car has never stopped for anyone unless you gave permission." This time he did smile, just barely. "It will stop for you." That sentence followed her into the car and sat beside her like a dangerous animal pretending to sleep. Lucia climbed in, dragging her suitcase after her, because she refused to let anyone else carry it. Tommaso entered from the other side, leaving enough space between them that another person could have sat there. The door closed. The city disappeared behind dark glass. The car moved. Rome at night looked different from behind protected windows. Softer, farther away. Wet streets flashed gold beneath lamps. Scooters cut through traffic like nervous fish. Couples hurried under umbrellas, laughing as if rain was romantic and not proof the sky could turn on you without warning. Lucia held the pastry box in her lap and tried not to shake. She did not want Tommaso to see it. She did not want anyone to see anything more of her tonight. "You can breathe," he said quietly. "I am breathing. You are fighting with air." She turned toward him. "Do you always sound like you are diagnosing people?" "No. Usually I just frighten them." "That sounds efficient. It saves time." Against every reasonable part of herself, Lucia almost laughed. The almost was worse than silence. It made her feel disloyal to the woman she had been an hour earlier, the woman standing in the hallway with a ring on her finger and a future she thought was ordinary but real. How could she almost laugh now? How could anything still be funny? Maybe the heart had strange manners too. Maybe when it was hurt badly enough, it reached for absurd things because pure pain was too heavy to carry without help. Tommaso watched her, but not in the greedy way Enzo sometimes watched Valentina across a room when he thought Lucia was not looking. Tommaso's attention did not crawl. It rested. That somehow made it more difficult to bear. "Where do you want to go?" he asked. Lucia looked out the window. "I do not know." "Family?" "No." "A friend?" She thought of Rosa from the bakery 2 streets over, kind but married to a man who told everyone everything. She thought of her aunt in Naples, who would call her mother before Lucia had removed her shoes. She thought of her mother, who would cry first, blame later, and ask if maybe there had been a misunderstanding, because weddings were expensive, and men were weak, and sisters were complicated. Lucia closed her eyes. "No," she said. Tommaso did not ask why. She appreciated that more than she wanted to. The car turned onto a quieter street. His phone lit in his hand. He read a message, then another. His face did not change, but the air did. It became colder. "What?" Lucia asked. "My men at the station lost one of them. The other was stopped." "Stopped how?" Tommaso looked at her. Lucia swallowed. "I do not want details." "Good." "No, not good. Terrible. I should want details. I should want police." "You still can." She looked at him again. "Can I?" "Yes." The answer came too quickly, too cleanly. Lucia's fingers moved along the wet cardboard seam of the pastry box. But if these papers involve your fiancé, your sister, and whatever men followed you tonight, the police may not be the first safe room you enter. Not in this city. Not until we know whose names are inside." "We?" He did not correct himself. He also did not apologize. Lucia looked down at the box. For the first time since leaving the shop, the full weight of it hit her. Not the papers. The truth. She had been betrayed in layers. Enzo had not only touched Valentina. Valentina had not only stolen a man Lucia had been ready to marry. They had put Dolce Stella inside something rotten. Her father's sign, her employees' wages, her tax documents, her suppliers, her name. If those papers were discovered in her office, what would anyone believe? That soft, foolish Lucia had hidden accounts for criminals? That she had smiled at old women and sold almond cookies while washing money through imaginary catering events? People loved stories that made the victim look stupid. It helped them feel safer. They would say she should have known. They would say how could she not know? They would not ask who had counted on her being too trusting to check. "I need to see them," Tommaso said. "No. I expected that." "Then why ask?" "Because taking is faster. Asking is better." Lucia stared at him. "Do you actually believe that?" "With you, yes." The car slipped under an old stone bridge, and for a moment his face was shadow, then light again. Lucia hated the small pull in her chest at those 2 words. With you. She knew what men like him did. They made exceptions sound like romance. Enzo had been good at softer versions of the same trick. "You are different. You understand me. I cannot talk to anyone the way I talk to you." Lucia had mistaken being chosen for being loved. Tonight had educated her. She opened the box anyway. Tommaso did not move closer. He stayed exactly where he was as Lucia lifted the paper-wrapped cannoli shells and pulled out the cream envelopes. The documents inside had curled slightly from moisture, but the ink remained clear. She unfolded the first page and held it so both of them could see. Tommaso's eyes scanned the lines once. Then again, his stillness changed. It became deadly. "You recognize this?" she asked. "Yes?" Her mouth went dry. "What is it?" "A map of money pretending to be food. That is not an answer. It is the simplest one. Try the frightening one." His gaze flicked to her. A set of payment trails attached to laundering routes. some through catering companies, some through import suppliers, some through charities. This name here is a shell tied to a dockworker union. This one is linked to a man who disappeared last winter. This one should not be in Rome at all. Lucia listened, her stomach turning colder with every sentence. And my shop. Tommaso was quiet too long. My shop, she repeated. His voice lowered. Dolce Stella was used as a clean front. Small cash-heavy business. Respectable owner. Family history. Regular invoices. No one would look twice. Because I am harmless. Because they thought you were. The correction was quiet. It struck harder than comfort should have. Lucia looked away fast. The city blurred beyond the glass. She wanted to cry now. Not loudly, not beautifully. She wanted to fold over the box and let the whole night pour out of her. But Tommaso was there, and his guard was driving, and somewhere in Rome, Enzo was probably rehearsing concern. Valentina was probably crying into their mother's phone. Men were searching for Lucia because she had accidentally carried away proof of something that had been living beneath her life, like rot under tile. I did not know, she whispered. I know. You cannot know that. Yes, I can. How? He pointed gently at the pages, because anyone guilty would have burned these before running. You wrapped them in pastry and argued about cannoli. The laugh that escaped her was small and broken. She pressed a hand to her mouth. That is not funny. No, but it is. A little. She laughed again, and this time it turned into one quiet sob before she could stop it. Her shoulders tightened with the effort of holding back the rest. Tommaso looked toward the driver. Pull over. The car eased to the side of a narrow street, lined with shuttered shops and sleeping apartments. Rain tapped lightly on the roof. Lucia wiped her face with the back of her hand, embarrassed by the mess of herself. I am fine, she said. You are not. I do not need a stranger telling me that. No. He reached into the side compartment and took out a clean handkerchief. He offered it without leaning into her space. Lucia stared at it. White cotton, plain, carefully folded. You carry handkerchiefs? She asked, because it was easier than crying. I have an old-fashioned tailor. That is the worst explanation I have ever heard. It is also true. She took it. Their fingers did not touch. She noticed that. She wished she had not. For a while, no one spoke. The city breathed around them. Somewhere above, a window opened and closed. A scooter passed with a wet hiss. Lucia pressed the handkerchief under her eyes and tried to recognize herself inside her own skin. My fiancé is Enzo Rosati, she said finally. Tommaso's face did not move, but something behind his eyes hardened. I know the family. Of course you do. Not kindly. That made her look at him. What does that mean? It means the Rosatis do not build anything. They attach themselves to people who do. Lucia thought of Enzo leaning against the counter at Dolce Stella, charming customers, accepting compliments for the little shop as if he had ever woken at 4 to roll dough. She thought of him telling her maybe after the wedding they could modernize the place, rebrand it, expand, make it less sentimental. She had thought he was dreaming bigger for both of them. Maybe he had only been measuring the walls. And my sister? She asked, though she hated herself for needing to know. Valentina Verisi? Lucia flinched. You really do know things too quickly. She has been seen with people close to the Rosatis. Not often. Enough. The words landed softly but cruelly. Enough. Lucia had wanted a timeline, then immediately did not. How many lunches had Valentina pretended were errands? How many times had Enzo kissed Lucia goodbye and walked into some darker version of the day? The bedroom door had only been the last scene she was unlucky enough to witness. The betrayal had been living long before she opened the apartment door. Tommaso's phone lit again. He read the message, and this time his jaw tightened. What? Lucia asked. Your bakery is on fire. For 1 second, Lucia did not understand the sentence. Her mind held the words separately, refusing to put them together. "No," she said. Tommaso was already speaking to the driver. The car pulled back into traffic, fast enough that Lucia grabbed the door. "No," she said again, louder this time. "No, no, no. That is not possible. Lucia." "My ovens were off. I turned them off. I checked everything. I always check everything." "I know. You do not know. You do not know anything about my shop. I know you checked." The certainty in his voice almost broke her. She turned toward the window, searching streets as if she could see smoke from wherever they were. Her heart climbed into her throat. Dolce Stella was not just a shop. It was her father's hands on the sign. It was her name on the receipts. It was old Signora Belli, calling the lemon cream holy. It was children with chocolate on their chins. It was burnt sugar, copper lamps, espresso cups, wedding orders, rent fear, recipe cards, and the only place in Rome where Lucia had ever felt fully useful. The idea of fire touching it made her body go cold. When they turned the corner 2 streets away, the smoke was already visible. Not huge flames, not the wild orange mouth Lucia had imagined. Smoke first, thick and grey, pushing from the back of the building into the rain. Firefighters were there. Neighbors stood under umbrellas. Someone was crying. Someone else was filming. Lucia shoved the car door open before it fully stopped. Tommaso caught the edge of the door, not her arm. "Wait. My shop is burning. And whoever set it may still be watching." She turned on him, tears finally free in her eyes. "Then let them watch." She ran. This time he did not stop her. He followed. The street was slick beneath Lucia's shoes. She pushed through the small crowd, ignoring voices that called her name. The front windows of Dolce Stella were blackened at the edges, but not shattered. The blue sign still hung above the door, wet and smoky, her father's carved letters barely visible beneath ash. The fire seemed to have started in the back, her office. Her little office with the photograph, her filing cabinet, her receipt boxes, her past. A firefighter blocked her before she could reach the door. "Signora, you cannot go inside. This is my shop. I know, you still cannot go inside. My father's picture is in there." His face softened, and Lucia hated softness again. Softness meant no. Tommaso appeared beside her. The firefighter looked at him, and his expression changed before he could hide it. Recognition, fear, respect, whatever men like Tommaso collected instead of warmth. "No one enters," the firefighter said, but his voice was less certain now. Tommaso did not threaten him. "Was anyone inside?" "No. Fire started near the rear office. Accelerant, maybe. Too early to say." Lucia closed her eyes. Accelerant. A clean, official word for someone choosing to destroy her life faster. A neighbor pushed forward. "Lucia, thank God. I saw 2 men near the alley after you left. I thought maybe deliveries, but then smoke came. I called as soon as I smelled it." Lucia turned. "Did you see their faces?" The woman shook her head. "Hoods, dark coats. I am sorry. Sorry. Sorry." The word followed Lucia everywhere now, useless and exhausted. Her phone suddenly buzzed in her coat pocket. Everyone around her seemed to fade as she pulled it out. She had forgotten she turned it back on in the car to check the time. The screen showed Enzo. Tommaso saw the name. Lucia answered before he could say anything. For 1 second, there was only breathing. "Lucia," Enzo said, and his voice sounded exactly as she feared it would. Worried, gentle, beautifully practiced. "Thank God, where are you?" She looked at the smoke rising from Dolce Stella. "You tell me." A pause, tiny, almost invisible, but she heard it. "What?" "My shop is burning, Enzo." "Oh my God, too fast, too shocked." "Lucia, are you hurt? Were you hoping I would be?" Silence moved through the line. Then Enzo's voice lowered. "You are upset. I understand that. But you need to calm down and listen to me." There it was, the old shape of him. Polished shoes, careful promises, hands that knew exactly when to become gentle so control could enter quietly. Lucia stared at the smoke. "No, Lucia, no," she said again, and this time the word felt like a key turning in a lock from the inside. "You do not get to tell me what to do anymore." Another silence, then something colder under his voice. "What did you take from the office?" Tommaso's attention sharpened beside her. Lucia's fear returned, but it returned changed, not smaller, better dressed. "Pastries," she said. "Do not be clever with me." The man she had almost married finally stepped out from behind his mask, and Lucia felt a strange relief. There you are, she thought. There was the truth with its shirt buttoned properly this time. "You and Valentina should have eaten them when you had the chance," she said. "They were still warm." Enzo inhaled sharply. "Where are you?" Lucia looked at Tommaso. His face gave nothing away, but his eyes were on hers, steady as stone. "Somewhere you should not come," she said. Then she ended the call. The phone began ringing again almost immediately. She turned it off and slipped it into her pocket. Her hands were shaking badly now, but she did not hide them. Not from Tommaso. Not from the neighbors. Not from the smoke. Let the whole street see. Let Rome see. Lucia Verisi was shaking, yes, but she was still standing. Tommaso spoke quietly near her shoulder. "You cannot go home. I know. You cannot stay with family. I know. He will look for you anywhere he thinks you are soft enough to return." Lucia turned to him. "And where do you think I should go?" The rain slid down his dark coat. Smoke curled behind him. Firelight moved faintly across his face, making him look less like a man and more like a warning carved into human shape. "With me?" he said. Lucia almost laughed. "That is the worst idea I have heard tonight, and tonight has been very competitive." "Yes. At least pretend to disagree. I try not to lie unless necessary. You are a mafia boss." "Exactly. I know when lying is necessary." She stared at him for a long moment. Behind her, water hissed against the fire. Her shop was wounded. Her apartment was gone. Her fiancé wanted the documents. Her sister knew enough to be dangerous. Her family might already be hearing Valentina's version of the story. Every normal road had closed quietly behind her. "What happens if I go with you?" she asked. "You sleep somewhere locked from the inside. No one touches the box. In the morning, you decide what you want to do with the papers. And tonight?" His eyes moved briefly toward the blackened windows of Dolce Stella. "Tonight, I make sure no one gets close enough to take the choice from you." That should not have comforted her. It did anyway. Lucia looked at her father's sign. The blue paint was streaked with soot, but the letters remained. Dolce Stella, Sweet Star. Her father had said everyone needed one warm light to walk toward. She wondered what he would think of her now, standing in the rain beside a dangerous man, holding evidence she did not understand, with ash in her hair, and her future burned open. "I am not yours to protect," she said. Tommaso's answer came softly. "No." She looked back at him. "You are not mine," he said. "But someone has decided you are theirs to destroy. Until you tell me otherwise, I will stand in the way." The street noise faded around her. Not because the world had gone quiet, but because that sentence entered some deep place in Lucia that had been bracing for hands, orders, pressure, and ownership. He did not say he would save her. He did not say she should trust him. He did not say she had no choice. He only offered to stand where danger was coming from. Lucia held the ruined pastry box closer. "All right," she whispered. Tommaso nodded once, as if she had given him something more serious than permission to drive her away from a burning bakery. As they walked back to the car, Lucia looked over her shoulder one last time. Smoke rose into the Roman rain. Neighbors watched. Firefighters moved through grey light. Somewhere in the city, Enzo was learning that the woman he had used as a hiding place had walked out carrying the one thing he feared. Somewhere, Valentina was probably crying beautifully into a phone. Somewhere, men were already being sent into the night. And beside Lucia, close enough to shield but not close enough to claim, Tommaso Silvestri opened the car door and waited until she chose to step inside. The car slid away from the burning bakery, with Lucia sitting by the door, the ruined pastry box held tightly in her lap, and Tommaso Silvestri beside her in silence. He did not tell her not to look back. Maybe he knew she would anyway. Maybe he had learned already that Lucia Verisi did not stop loving something just because someone had set fire to it. Through the dark glass, she watched the smoke fade behind them, until Dolce Stella became only a grey blur in the rain, then nothing at all. Her chest hurt in a way that did not feel like crying. It felt like someone had taken a warm room inside her and opened every window to winter. She had lost Enzo before midnight. She had lost Valentina long before that, though she had only just discovered it. But the shop was different. The shop had never lied to her. The shop had never asked her to be smaller. The shop had only asked her to wake early, work hard, keep going, and believe that sweetness still mattered in a city full of hunger. Tommaso's phone glowed once in his hand. He read the message, then turned it face down on his knee. Lucia noticed the movement because she was noticing everything now. Betrayal had made her eyes cruelly awake. "More bad news?" she asked. "Not worse than fire. That is not comforting." "I know. Then why say it?" "Because I do not want to pretend this is less dangerous than it is." Lucia looked at him. The lights of Rome moved across his face in soft bands of gold and shadow. He looked calm, but not relaxed. There was a difference. His body had the stillness of someone listening for footsteps through walls. She wondered how long a man had to live in danger before peace began to feel suspicious. "Do they know I am with you?" she asked. "Not yet. But they will." "Yes. And then?" "Then Enzo Rosati will understand that whatever game he thought he was playing has changed." Lucia turned toward the window. "I do not want to become part of one of your games." "You are not." That was very fast. It was very true. She almost wanted to believe him. That frightened her more than his name did. Wanting to believe a man had always been where her worst mistakes began. The car left the main road and climbed toward a quieter part of the city, where the old buildings stood farther apart, and iron gates guarded private gardens dark with rain. They stopped before a stone villa, half hidden behind cypress trees. No bright show of wealth, no golden lions, no foolish palace meant to impress people who already feared him. The house looked older than pride, with ivy climbing one side and warm lamps glowing behind deep windows. A guard opened the gate. Another watched the street until the car disappeared inside. Lucia did not move when the door opened. Tommaso stepped out first, then waited. He did not reach for her. He did not tell her they were safe. That word had become too expensive. Lucia gathered the pastry box and suitcase and climbed out herself. Her legs felt weak, but she stayed upright. The rain had softened to a mist, cold against her face. Somewhere in the garden, water dripped from leaves. The villa smelled of stone, rosemary, and old wood. Inside, the entry hall was quiet. Too quiet for a man people called dangerous. No music. No guests, no women in silk, no men laughing over whiskey. Just dark floors, pale walls, a narrow staircase, and a lamp burning beside a bowl of oranges. An older woman appeared from a hallway, wearing a grey dress, and a look that said she had seen every kind of emergency, except maybe one carrying cannoli. "This is Marta," Tommaso said. "She runs the house." Marta looked at Lucia's soaked hair, flour-streaked coat, dirty shoes, and the ruined box in her arms. Her face softened, but not in the pitying way Lucia hated. More like a woman looking at bread that had been dropped but not ruined. "I'll prepare a room," Marta said. "No," Lucia said quickly. Both of them looked at her. She swallowed. "Sorry. I mean, please." "No room where the door locks from the outside." Marta's face changed first. A tiny flicker of understanding, then Tommaso's jaw tightened. Not at Lucia, but at whatever he imagined had taught her to ask that question. "Every bedroom locks only from the inside," Marta said gently. "You may check yourself." Lucia nodded once. Tommaso turned to one of his men. "No one enters this house without my permission, and hers." Lucia looked at him sharply. He glanced back. Was that wrong? It should have been ridiculous, a man like him asking for correction in his own house. But his voice was serious. She hugged the box closer. "No, just unexpected. Then I will try to be less surprising. You failed already." For the first time since the bakery burned, the corner of his mouth moved. It was small, barely there, but it warmed the room by one impossible degree. Marta led Lucia to a sitting room with a low fire, a sofa the color of cream, and shelves full of books that looked read instead of displayed. Lucia refused tea, then accepted it when Marta brought it anyway without making a ceremony of asking twice. She set the pastry box on the table, but kept one hand on it. Tommaso remained near the fireplace, far enough away that the space between them belonged to her. "You should sleep," he said. Lucia gave him a tired look. "My bakery is burning. My fiancé is a criminal. My sister is a snake. And there are money records under dessert. I am not sleeping." Marta paused at the door. "There is soup." Lucia almost laughed. "Of course there is." "Soup is useful when the world behaves badly," Marta said, and left before anyone could argue. Tommaso sat in the chair across from Lucia, not beside her. "May I read the papers now?" She stared at him for a long moment. The question mattered. "May I not give them to me? Not you do not understand what you are holding. Not let the men handle this. The papers were dangerous, yes, but they were also the only thing Lucia had left that nobody had yet taken from her." She opened the box and pulled out the envelopes. "You can read them here," she said, "across from me." "Good. And if you see something that means I am about to die, say it like a normal person. I may need instructions for that. Start with not looking like a marble saint at a funeral." "I thought I was a funeral statue. Do not get sentimental. You have not earned saint." He looked down before she could see the smile fully, and somehow that tiny piece of humor made her hands stop shaking long enough to unfold the first page. They worked until the fire sank low. Tommaso read quickly, but not carelessly. He did not explain everything at first, only marked names on a blank sheet Marta brought him and asked Lucia questions she could actually answer. Which suppliers were real? Which events had happened? Which invoices she remembered signing? Which deliveries came at strange hours? At first, Lucia hated how little she knew. Every false line felt like a private insult. But after a while, something shifted. She began to see the pattern. The fake catering deposits were always placed after large weddings. The inflated flower shipments were logged during holiday weeks, when no one would question extra stock. Enzo had asked harmless questions. Valentina had visited on days certain files were later moved. The truth did not appear as one monster. It arrived as crumbs. And Lucia knew crumbs. At 2 in the morning she found the first mistake. "This one," she said suddenly. Tommaso looked up. Lucia tapped the page. "This invoice says, San Pietro reception, 200 guests, lemon cream sfogliatelle, and almond tarts." "And? I never made almond tarts for that reception." Tommaso's eyes sharpened. "The bride's mother was allergic to almonds," Lucia continued, the memory returning clear as light. "She called me 6 times about it. I made orange biscuits instead and washed every surface twice because she was terrified. This invoice is copied from the original, but someone changed the item after. Tommaso leaned forward slightly. Why would that matter? Almonds are expensive, Lucia said. Orange biscuits are not. If they inflated ingredients, they needed matching supplier receipts. Show me the page with Bellafiore imports. He passed it to her. Lucia scanned down the lines, lips moving silently. There, almond paste, 30 kilos. Impossible. Because of the allergy? Because Bellafiore does not sell almond paste. They sell citrus, figs, and imported chocolate. I know because their almond paste is terrible, and I stopped ordering it years ago. Tommaso stared at her for one still second. What? Lucia said. You just found the false supplier bridge. I found bad almond paste. That may be enough. Lucia sat back. A strange heat moved through her chest. Not happiness. Not even relief. Something older. Usefulness. The same feeling she had the first time her father let her close the bakery alone. The same feeling she had when tourists came back 3 days in a row and pointed at pastries without knowing their names because the taste had stayed with them. Enzo had hidden his crime inside her world because he thought sugar was simple. He had forgotten that sweetness had structure, recipes had memory, kitchens had witnesses. Tommaso's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. His face changed. Who is it? Lucia asked. Your fiancé. Her stomach tightened. Tommaso did not answer. He turned the phone so she could see Enzo's name, then placed it on the table between them as it continued to ring. How does he have your number? She asked. Men like Enzo always believe access can be purchased. The ringing stopped. Then a message appeared. Tommaso read it aloud, his voice flat. She stole from us. Return her and the documents, or your quiet arrangements with the Rosati's end tonight. Lucia felt the blood leave her face. She stole from us. Yes. He is already making me the thief. Yes. She stood so quickly the papers rustled. Call him back. Tommaso looked up. Lucia. Call him back. If you are angry. I am. That is not always the best time to speak. It is the only time I have left before everyone else speaks for me. Tommaso held her gaze. Something silent passed between them, a test neither of them had planned. He could have refused. He could have decided strategy mattered more than her voice. For one breath, Lucia saw him wanting to, saw the old command rising in him, the instinct of a man who survived by taking control before danger could multiply. Then he slid the phone across the table. Lucia answered when Enzo picked up. Where are you? Enzo demanded. Lucia almost smiled, not because anything was funny, but because the mask was gone now. No gentle greeting, no soft worry. No, sweetheart, just the voice of a man losing property. Still asking the wrong questions, she said. Silence. Then his tone changed, smoothing itself. Lucia, listen to me. You are confused. You found things you do not understand. I understand almond paste. Tommaso's eyes lifted. Enzo paused. What? You really should have paid more attention when I talked about work. Lucia, this is serious. Yes, my shop is burned. I had nothing to do with that. You said that too quickly. I am trying to help you. No, you are trying to find out what I know. Another pause. Longer this time. When Enzo spoke again, his voice was lower. You do not want to stand against people you cannot see. Lucia's heart kicked hard, but she held the phone steady. Funny. That is what made you comfortable betraying me. Come home. I do not have one anymore. Your mother is worried. There it was. The knife dressed as family. Lucia closed her eyes briefly. Did Valentina cry first or second? Do not talk about your sister like that. A laugh escaped her, soft and disbelieving. You were in my bed with her 4 hours ago. She loves me. The sentence should have shattered something. It did not. It landed on the table, dull and ugly, already dead. Lucia looked at the fire. Then she can have what is left of you. Enzo's voice sharpened. Do you think Silvestri will save you? Men like him do not save women like you. They use them until the danger passes. Lucia looked at Tommaso. He did not move. He did not defend himself. He let the accusations sit in the room like smoke and waited for her to decide what she believed. I know what being used feels like now, Lucia said. It sounds exactly like you. She ended the call. For a while, there was only the fire and the rain. Tommaso took the phone back slowly. You did well. I did not do it for your approval. I know. She sank onto the sofa. Her whole body felt emptied out. What happens now? Now Enzo panics. And when men like him panic, they make mistakes. Lucia rubbed her eyes. You sound almost pleased. I am not pleased. I am focused. That is worse. Usually. Marta returned with soup, bread, and a blanket Lucia did not remember asking for. She ate because Marta stood nearby, with the calm authority of women who had survived too much to be polite about hunger. Tommaso did not eat until Lucia pushed the bread toward him. You should eat too, she said. He looked surprised. I assume dangerous men also require basic maintenance. They try to avoid admitting it. How tragic for them. He took the bread. By dawn, they had enough. Not everything, not the whole machine, but enough to know the Rosatis had used small family businesses across Rome as clean fronts. Enough to know Enzo had placed Lucia's signature near transactions she had never approved. Enough to know Valentina had copied old invoices and moved folders while pretending to help with wedding ribbons. Enough to know the fire had been meant to destroy whatever Lucia had found and make her look guilty if the records surfaced later. Enough, most importantly, to set a trap. Tommaso explained it quietly, while morning light turned the windows gray. We release nothing at first. We let Enzo believe you only have fragments. He will try to trade, threaten, or recover the rest. Lucia looked at the papers. And the rest? I have people who can reach the financial police, but not through the usual doors. There is a prosecutor who owes me nothing, which makes her useful. She hates men like me, and men like Enzo equally. That sounds healthy. It is rare. Lucia pressed her fingers to her temples. I want my name cleared. I want my shop back. I want Valentina to tell my mother the truth. Tommaso's expression softened in the smallest way. The first two I can help with. And the third? The third may hurt more. Lucia nodded because she knew. Law could punish crime. It could not force shame into people who had learned to live without it. Her mother called at 8. Lucia stared at the screen until it stopped, then started again. On the third call, she answered. Tommaso stood to leave the room, but Lucia shook her head. She did not want him listening exactly. She just did not want to feel alone. Her mother was crying. Of course she was crying. She asked where Lucia was, asked if she was safe, asked what had happened at the apartment, asked why Valentina was hysterical, asked why Enzo said Lucia had taken business papers and disappeared with dangerous people. Lucia let the questions come. She let them pile up like dirty dishes. Then she said one sentence. I came home and found them together. The crying stopped. In that silence, Lucia felt 29 years of sisterhood, duty, guilt, family dinners, borrowed dresses, shared childhood beds, Christmas mornings, jealousy, forgiveness, and every small time Lucia had stepped aside because Valentina needed to shine brighter. She waited for her mother to say, impossible. She waited for maybe you misunderstood. She waited for the old habit of making Lucia responsible for keeping the peace. Instead, her mother whispered, your sister told me it was a mistake. Lucia closed her eyes. There was pain in that, but there was also truth. Her mother had known enough to ask the wrong question. It was not a mistake, Lucia said. It was a pattern, and they used the bakery. She told her enough. Not all of it. Not names Tommaso had marked. Not the trap being laid, but enough that her mother stopped crying and began breathing like a woman who had opened a cupboard and found rot behind every plate. At the end, her mother said, "Come to me." Lucia looked at the papers on the table, at the rain on the windows, at Tommaso standing near the door, silent and careful. "I can't," Lucia said. "Not yet. Are you with him? With Silvestri?" Lucia did not answer fast enough. Her mother made a small, frightened sound. "Lucia." "I am with myself," Lucia said, "for the first time in a long time. He is just the person whose house I am standing in." Tommaso looked down. Her mother was quiet, then said, "Your father would have burned the world for that shop." Lucia's throat tightened. "I know. But he would have wanted you alive more." That was when Lucia finally cried. Not for Enzo, not even for the bakery, for her father, and the blue sign, and the young woman in the photograph who had once believed hard work kept bad things away. She cried quietly, one hand over her mouth, while her mother stayed on the line and cried with her from the other side of Rome. By noon, Enzo made his mistake. He sent a message from Valentina's phone. "Lucia, please, he is scaring me. Enzo says if you return the papers, everything can still be fixed. Meet me at the old apartment. Come alone. I need my sister." Lucia read it twice. Once as the woman who had loved Valentina, once as the woman Valentina had counted on being. Tommaso read it after her. "No." Lucia looked at him. His face tightened. He knew before she spoke. "I am going," she said. "No." The word was quiet, but it was still a wall. Lucia stood, careful. Tommaso's eyes held hers. For a moment, the room changed. He was not Enzo. He was not pretending kindness while tightening a leash. But power did not need cruelty to become dangerous. Sometimes it only needed certainty. "You think I do not understand the risk," Lucia said. "I think you understand it and are going anyway. She is my sister. She betrayed you. Yes. She is helping him. Maybe. Lucia. No." Her voice shook, but it did not break. "You do not get to decide which wounds I am done caring about." That struck him. She saw it land. His hands curled once at his sides, then opened. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "You are right." She had been ready to fight. His surrender left her suddenly unsteady. "I can ask you not to go," he said. "I can tell you it is almost certainly a trap. I can offer another way, but I cannot decide for you." Lucia swallowed. There it was again, the line between protection and control. Thin as thread, sharp as wire. Tommaso had stepped on it, then stepped back because she had asked him to. That did not make him safe forever. It made him aware. Tonight, that mattered. "What is the other way?" she asked. His relief was so small most people would have missed it. "You go," he said, "but not alone, not unprepared, and not with the real papers." The apartment looked smaller when Lucia returned. Maybe betrayal had made it shrink. Maybe she had. The yellow hallway wall glowed softly in afternoon light, unchanged and rude in its cheerfulness. The pastry box, ring, and note were gone from the entry table. Someone had cleaned the powdered sugar from the floor. That angered her more than it should have. Even her small white proof of leaving had been wiped away. Valentina stood in the living room wearing one of Lucia's sweaters. For 1 second, Lucia could not speak. The sweater was blue wool, stretched slightly at the cuffs from years of bakery mornings. Valentina had always said it made Lucia look tired. Now she wore it like costume grief. "Lou," Valentina whispered. Lucia set the decoy envelope on the table. "Do not call me that." Valentina's face crumpled. She was beautiful even when crying, especially when crying. Their mother used to say Valentina had the kind of face painters invented saints for. Lucia wondered when she had first learned tears could be tools. "I made a terrible mistake," Valentina said. "Yes. I never meant to hurt you." Lucia almost laughed. "That is such a strange thing to say after doing exactly that for months." Valentina flinched. Good. Lucia was glad, then ashamed, then glad again. A door opened behind her. Enzo stepped out of the bedroom, dressed in yesterday's shirt, his hair carefully fixed. Not a man destroyed by guilt. A man staging concern. "Lucia," he said softly, "thank God." She looked at him and felt nothing romantic at all. Not love, not longing, not even the clean hatred she expected. He looked smaller in daylight, handsome still, but badly made underneath. "Where are the documents?" he asked. Valentina turned. "Enzo." His mask slipped with irritation. "Enough." Lucia looked at her sister. "There he is." Enzo moved closer. "You do not understand what you have done." "No, I understand more every hour. You put yourself in danger. You did that when you hid criminal records in my shop." His jaw tightened. "Your shop was failing before me." Lucia blinked. There it was. The little cruelty he had probably carried for years and dressed in advice. Expand, modernize, be realistic. Let me help. Beneath it all, he had never believed in what she built. "My shop paid your rent twice," Lucia said quietly. Valentina looked down. Enzo's face darkened. "Give me the papers." Lucia touched the envelope. "Why? So you can burn these too?" He lunged for it. The front door opened before he reached her. Tommaso entered with 2 men behind him, calm as midnight. Enzo stopped so abruptly he almost stumbled. Valentina turned white. "You came alone?" Enzo said to Lucia, voice thin with fury. Lucia looked at him. "I said I would. I did not say no one would come after." Tommaso's gaze moved once around the room, taking in the furniture, the open bedroom door, the yellow walls, Valentina in Lucia's sweater, Enzo's hand half curled near the table. His face did not change, but Lucia felt the temperature drop. "This is private," Enzo said. "No," Lucia said. "It stopped being private when you used my father's bakery." Tommaso placed a phone on the table. A woman's voice came through, crisp and official. "This is Prosecutor Elena Greco. The line is recorded." "Signora Verisi, continue." Enzo's face changed completely. Valentina began to cry again, but this time the tears looked frightened instead of graceful. Lucia opened the decoy envelope and pulled out blank papers. Enzo stared. "The real documents are already gone," Lucia said. "Copies too. You really should have paid attention when I told you bakers wake up early." Tommaso's men moved aside as 2 plainclothes officers entered the apartment. Not loud, not theatrical, just efficient. Enzo backed away, then stopped when he realized there was nowhere in the room where his charm could stand. "You think Silvestri is clean?" he snapped. "You think he is helping you out of kindness?" Lucia glanced at Tommaso. He did not look away. "No," she said. "I think he has his own reasons, but the difference is he let me choose mine." That silenced the room more effectively than shouting. Valentina stepped toward Lucia. "Please, I did not know about all of it." Lucia looked at her sister, really looked. The red eyes, the trembling mouth, the blue sweater, the fear, and beneath it, still, that old hunger. The hunger that had smiled beside the display case when Enzo proposed. "But you knew about him," Lucia said. Valentina covered her mouth. Lucia nodded. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But the hurt was clean now. It had a name. When Enzo was taken out, he did not look at Valentina. That was the last gift he gave Lucia. He showed her sister, in front of everyone, exactly how little stolen love was worth when consequences entered the room. Valentina stood shaking in the middle of the apartment, abandoned by the man she had betrayed her sister to keep. Lucia should have felt satisfied. She did not. She felt tired. Outside, Rome was pale after rain. Tommaso walked beside her down the stairs but did not touch her. On the landing, Lucia stopped. "I need to do one thing," she said. He waited. She went back into the apartment, past Valentina, who whispered her name once and received nothing in return. In the bedroom, Lucia found the little porcelain dish on the dresser where Enzo used to keep coins, collar stays and receipts he forgot to throw away. Her engagement ring sat inside it. He had not even kept it somewhere meaningful. Lucia picked it up, carried it to the kitchen, and dropped it into the trash beneath coffee grounds and onion skins. Then she left. 3 months later, Dolce Stella reopened on a Saturday morning with a new back door, new office walls, repaired copper lamps, and her father's blue sign cleaned but not repainted. Lucia had refused to erase every mark of the fire. One dark edge remained at the bottom of the sign, small enough that most customers did not notice. Lucia noticed. She liked it there, proof that something could burn and still hang above the door. The Rosati case spread wider than anyone expected. More businesses came forward. 2 officials resigned. One supplier fled. Enzo's family tried to distance themselves from him, then failed when the old records surfaced. Valentina left Rome for a while. Their mother said she was staying with an aunt near Bari. Lucia did not ask for details. Some wounds needed distance before they decided whether they wanted forgiveness or only quiet. Tommaso did not visit the bakery on opening morning. Lucia told herself that was good, then told herself not to lie. He had sent workers after the fire, but only after asking. He had connected her with lawyers, but never attended a meeting unless she requested it. He had offered money once. She had said no. He had nodded and never offered again. Instead, he paid full price for every repair order she approved through proper invoices, so clean, even Prosecutor Greco could have blessed them with holy water. Lucia did not know what to do with a dangerous man who understood boundaries better than most gentle ones. At noon, the line stretched out the door. Old customers kissed her cheeks. Children pressed noses to the glass again. Signora Belli cried over the lemon cream and claimed it tasted better with survival in it. Lucia laughed for the first time, without pain attached. Flour dusted her apron. Sugar clung to her sleeves. The ovens breathed heat into the kitchen. For the first time since the night everything broke, Dolce Stella felt warm, without pretending nothing had happened. Near closing, when the sky turned lavender over the street and the last customers drifted away, the little bell above the door rang. Lucia looked up. Tommaso stood just inside, dressed in a dark coat, his hair damp from light rain. No guards beside him, no grand entrance, no funeral statue act, though the cheekbones remained unfortunately dramatic. Lucia folded her arms. "You are late." "I was told opening day would be crowded." "It was. I thought you might prefer the crowd without me." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded toward the empty display case. "That was thoughtful. I am occasionally accused of it." "By whom?" "Marta, when she is in a generous mood." Lucia tried not to smile. Failed a little. He stepped closer, but not too close. His gaze moved around the bakery, the repaired walls, the polished glass, the blue sign visible through the window, the little dark burn mark still at the edge. "It looks beautiful," he said. "It looks stubborn." "That too." Lucia went behind the counter and took out a small white box she had hidden beneath the shelf. She placed it in front of him. Tommaso looked at it. "What is this?" "Cannoli." His eyes lifted to hers. "You owed me 18 euros and an apology," she said. "I apologized. To the cannoli. They were the injured party. And now you can pay." He reached for his wallet. Lucia placed a hand over the box. "Not with money." Tommaso became very still. She pushed the box toward him. Taste them. Tell me honestly if they survived the rebuild." He looked at her as if she had offered something far more dangerous than dessert. Maybe she had. Then he opened the box, took one cannolo, and bit into it with the seriousness of a man entering a contract. Lucia watched his face. "Well?" she asked. He swallowed. Priceless. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. She looked down fast, pretending to adjust the ribbon on the box. "That is not an honest business valuation," she said. "No. Terrible accounting. I know someone good with numbers." She looked up. There was softness in his face now, but not the kind that tried to own her, just warmth, held carefully, as if he understood it could be refused. "Tommaso," she said. "Yes. I am not ready to belong to anyone." His answer came without hesitation. "Good." She blinked. "I do not want you because you are ready to belong," he said. "I want to know you because you are finally yours." The bakery went very quiet around them. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Rain touched the windows gently, not like the storm from that first night, but like a memory that had learned to knock. Lucia thought of the hallway, the ring, the note, the fire. The car door waiting open. Tommaso's hand offered but not forced. Enzo's voice telling her to come home. Her own voice saying no. Her father's sign, scarred and still hanging. The woman she had been, and the woman she was becoming, standing in the same body, but no longer asking permission to stay. She reached into the display case and took the last imperfect cannoli shell, the one she had kept, because it was cracked down one side but still beautiful. She filled it slowly with sweet cream, dusted it with sugar, and placed it on a plate between them. "This one is mine," she said. Tommaso looked amused. "Am I allowed to ask why you are giving it to me?" "I am not giving it to you." She broke it carefully in half. "I am sharing it." His expression changed, just slightly. The difference mattered. Lucia handed him one half and kept the other. They ate standing on opposite sides of the counter, with the bakery warm around them and the city moving softly beyond the glass. It was not a promise. Not yet. Not a ring. Not a surrender. Just sugar, cream, rain, and a dangerous man who had learned how to wait. When he left that night, he did not ask when he could see her again. He only paused at the door and said, "Good night, Lucia." She smiled. "Good night, funeral statue." His laugh was quiet, surprised, and real. The bell rang after him. Lucia locked the door from the inside, turned off the lamps one by one, and stood for a moment beneath her father's blue sign. Her hand rested against the glass. The street outside was wet and shining. Somewhere in Rome, old stories were ending badly for people who deserved it. Somewhere, new ones were beginning carefully for people who had learned the cost of rushing. Lucia looked at the empty pastry box on the counter, clean and waiting for morning. Then she went to the kitchen, washed the sugar from her hands, and began preparing dough for the next day. Morning came softly to Rome, pale and gold, slipping over the rooftops like a hand careful not to wake anyone too suddenly. Lucia had not slept much, but she did not feel ruined by it. There had been too many nights when exhaustion had felt like defeat, when she had dragged herself through bakery doors with swollen eyes and pretended that tiredness was just another ingredient. This morning was different. This tiredness belonged to work, honest work, the kind that left flour beneath her nails and warmth in her wrists. She rolled dough while the city stretched awake outside, while the first buses sighed at the corner, while rainwater dried from the stones, while Dolce Stella slowly filled with the smell of butter, coffee, lemon zest and sugar beginning again. By 7, Marta arrived with a basket of oranges from Tommaso's garden and pretended she had simply been passing by, though she lived nowhere near the shop. By 7:30, Signora Belli knocked on the glass, even though the door was not open yet, holding a folded newspaper under one arm and wearing the expression of a woman who believed rules were for people without pastry needs. By 8, 3 children from the neighborhood pressed their faces to the display case, arguing over which cannoli looked largest. Lucia let them in early and gave each of them a small broken shell dusted with sugar. The shells were imperfect. So was everything worth loving. The newspaper carried Enzo's name on the second page, not the front. Lucia was glad. Men like him would hate being placed beneath political noise and a football scandal. The article was careful, full of words like alleged, investigation, financial irregularities, organized fraud, and multiple arrests. There was a smaller line about a local business owner whose records helped uncover the scheme. Lucia read it once, then folded the paper and placed it beneath the counter. She did not need the city to call her brave before she believed it. She had been brave in the hallway, brave in the rain, brave when she ran, brave when she answered the phone, brave when she stood in the apartment and let the truth hear her voice. Her mother came just before noon. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Lucia stood behind the counter with flour on her cheek. Her mother stood near the door, smaller than Lucia remembered, holding her handbag with both hands as if she did not know what to do with them. There were many things between them. Valentina. Years of small forgivenesses Lucia had offered too quickly. Years of peace kept at Lucia's expense. Years of being called sensitive when she had actually been observant. Her mother looked around the shop, at the repaired walls, the copper lamps, the blue sign visible through the window, the little burn mark Lucia had refused to remove. Then she looked back at her daughter. "I should have listened to you more," her mother said. Lucia's throat tightened. It was not enough. Of course it was not enough. No single sentence could gather every missed moment and make it right. But it was something honest, and Lucia had learned to respect honest things, even when they arrived late and shaking. "Yes," Lucia said softly. "You should have." Her mother nodded, tears already filling her eyes. "I know." Lucia came around the counter. They did not rush into each other's arms like women in old films. Real forgiveness did not always move gracefully. Sometimes it stood still first, checking the floor beneath it. But after a moment, Lucia reached for her mother's hand, and her mother held it like something precious she was afraid of dropping again. Valentina wrote once from Bari. The message was long, too long, full of regret, fear, excuses that began as apologies, and apologies that turned into explanations. Lucia read it after closing, sitting alone at the little table by the window. She did not answer that night, or the next. A week later, she wrote back only 3 lines. "I am alive. I am rebuilding. I do not know yet what forgiveness will look like, and you do not get to rush me toward it." Then she put the phone away and slept better than she expected. Tommaso came every Thursday after closing. At first, Lucia pretended not to notice the pattern. He arrived with no guards inside the shop, though she knew they waited somewhere nearby because danger did not disappear just because people learned to behave gently. He bought 1 espresso, 2 cannoli, and once, very seriously, a small bag of almond biscuits he claimed were for Marta. Lucia told him Marta had better taste than that. He said Marta had asked specifically. Lucia later learned this was a lie, which started their first real argument after everything. It lasted 4 minutes, and ended when Tommaso admitted he had wanted the biscuits himself, but did not want to appear greedy. Lucia laughed so hard she had to sit down. He never asked to stay. That was what undid her slowly. Not flowers, not money, not promises delivered with heavy eyes and darker meanings. Waiting did more damage than pursuit ever could. He waited when she needed space. Waited when she became sharp for no reason except old fear had touched a new moment. Waited when she spoke of Enzo with anger one day and grief the next. Waited when she said she did not know what she wanted. Waited without turning patience into a debt. One evening in late spring, when the air smelled of warm stone and orange blossoms, Lucia closed the bakery and found him outside beneath her father's sign. He was looking at the small burn mark at the edge of the blue wood. "You still have not repaired that," he said. "I repaired it enough. It bothers people. Some ask about it. And what do you tell them?" Lucia locked the door and slipped the keys into her pocket. "That a fire tried to take the shop and failed." Tommaso looked at her then. "Good answer. I know." They walked together through the narrow street, not touching at first. Rome moved around them in soft evening sounds, plates clinking in restaurants, scooters passing too close. A baby crying from an open window, someone practicing violin badly 2 floors above. Lucia liked the terrible violin most. It sounded like someone refusing to give up just because beauty had not arrived yet. At the corner, Tommaso stopped. "Lucia." She turned. There was something in his face she had seen only once before, the night in his villa when she told him he did not get to decide which wounds she was done caring about. A man standing before a locked door, knowing he had no right to break it open. "I would like to ask you something," he said. Her heart gave one hard beat, then ask. "May I walk you home?" The question was so small, so ordinary, so far from everything men like him were supposed to ask. Lucia looked at him for a long moment, then down at his hand resting at his side. Not reaching, not claiming, just there. "Yes," she said. His fingers touched hers gently, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. She took his hand herself. They walked slowly. No promises, no ring, no grand speech under a balcony. Lucia had learned that love did not need to arrive loudly to be real. Sometimes it arrived like bread rising in the dark, quiet, warm, patient, needing only time, care, and hands that knew not to force it. Months later, when people asked how she met Tommaso Silvestri, Lucia always said the same thing. She told them he murdered a box of cannoli at Termini Station, and then apologized to the pastries before apologizing to her. Tommaso always corrected her, and said technically she had walked into him. Lucia always replied that funeral statues should not stand in public walkways. Marta always laughed. Signora Belli claimed she had known from the first Thursday that he was in love, because no man looked that serious while eating cannoli unless his heart was already involved. Dolce Stella became busier than ever, not because of scandal, though scandal helped for a few weeks. People came because the pastries were good, because Lucia remembered names, because the shop felt warm, without pretending the world was safe. A small framed photograph of her father stayed near the register. Beside it, Lucia placed a tiny card with 2 words written in her own hand. "I saw." Not as pain anymore, as proof. She had seen betrayal. She had seen danger. She had seen the truth hiding beneath invoices and perfume and polished promises. She had seen fire touch the place she loved and fail to finish it. She had seen a dangerous man choose restraint when control would have been easier. Most importantly, she had finally seen herself clearly. One rainy evening, almost a year after the night everything began, Lucia stood in the kitchen, after closing, rolling dough for the morning. Tommaso sat at the small table near the office, reading through supplier contracts because she had asked him to check one paragraph, and he had somehow turned it into a legal examination worthy of a government inquiry. His coat hung by the door. His sleeves were rolled up. There was powdered sugar on his cuff. Lucia looked at him and smiled. He glanced up. "What? You have sugar on your sleeve." He looked down, then back at her. "Occupational hazard. You do not work here." "No," he said softly. "But I like being where you are." The old Lucia might have looked away. The old Lucia might have made a joke quickly enough to hide how much the words mattered. This Lucia let them settle. Let herself feel the warmth of them. Let herself believe, not blindly, not foolishly, but with open eyes. She crossed the kitchen and kissed him first. Tommaso went very still for half a second, as if even now he would not assume he was allowed to keep what had been freely given. Then his hand rose to her cheek, careful and warm, and Lucia leaned into it because she wanted to. Because choosing was different from being chosen. Because her life was hers now, and there was room in it for sweetness, danger, memory, laughter, grief, and a love that knew how to wait outside a locked door. The ovens hummed behind them. Rain tapped softly against the windows. In the front room, beneath the blue sign with its small dark scar, the empty pastry boxes waited for morning. Lucia pulled back, just enough to look at him. "You still owe me 18 euros, she whispered. Tommaso smiled, real and quiet. "Put it on my account." Lucia laughed, and this time the sound filled the whole bakery. Outside, Rome glittered under the rain. Inside, sugar warmed, dough rose, and Lucia Verisi finally understood that some endings did not close a door. Some endings unlocked one.